Oh, hello. Today we are doing a little unhaul action, which I've actually already filmed, but somehow it got deleted or I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone. The good news is I've actually unhauled more things since then because, as you can see, I redid my library, and in the course of doing that, I did cull out a few other books, so I have a little bit more to include in this unhaulage. I'm also delighted to report that every book I'm unhauling I have actually read, with the exception of one. And considering there's like 20 plus books, I feel like that's pretty exciting. So let's dive in. Okay, so first up are some mass market paperbacks, which I don't really hold on to that often anyways, and if it's not just, a real favorite, I tend to pass them along. So I have three romances, two historical, one contemporary. So I am unhauling Wild Rain by Beverly Jenkins, which I did enjoy, but I just didn't love it. And so I'm holding on to Tempest in mass market, but I'm passing the sequel along. Then I'm also passing along How to Catch a Queen by Alyssa Cole, which is my least favorite Alyssa Cole book I've read. It is still perfectly respectable, perfectly solid. It's just not up to the standard I know she can achieve. So that was a little bit sad. But, beautiful cover. Hope somebody else enjoys it. And then My Fake Rake by Eva Lee. This I did really like. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. And yeah, it's a really nice sort of like fake dating, but in a historical thing. And then both of the characters are in STEM, which I love. So all in all, I think that this is a really fun historical, but I just don't feel the need to hold on to it. I'm not gonna lie, some of this is influenced by the fact that I think that the cover model resembles Jake Paul too much for my taste, especially considering how lovely the actual character in the book is who this is supposed to represent. 3 mass markets getting unhauled. A graphic novel I read that I'm unhauling is The Sacrifice of Darkness by Roxane Gay. This is like a dystopia kind of thing, and it was perfectly fine. I actually quite liked it's got a lot to do with the world going dark, and I really liked the way they represented darkness visually in the art. I thought that was cool, but not that memorable, and I just don't feel the need to hold on to it necessarily. Ugh. And then I did not enjoy Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahern. This was the follow-up to Serpent and Dove, which I did enjoy and would recommend. I'm holding on to Serpent and Dove, but I am unhauling the sequel, and I am not gonna finish up this trilogy or quartet or whatever it ends up being. I just really felt like this lost a lot of the momentum that the first book had established. Felt really repetitious, rambly. I think I saw somebody mention that it was originally supposed to be a duology, and now it got like expanded into a trilogy, and I think I just really felt it in this book. So sadly, unhauling this and not my personal favorite. Ooh, speaking of another one that was not for me, but I definitely could see somebody else enjoying, is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This book is talked about as being very light and easy breezy, and while I can see where somebody would get that, I do want to put out there a massive content warning for suicidal ideation and self-harm. I have not been triggered by a book the way that this one triggered me in years. Like years and years and years. And I don't think it's talked about because the tone is quite light, but what is being discussed, I mean, to the author's credit, it feels very real to the experience of being in that state of mind, and it was just too much for me. So I could see why somebody else would like this, but for me, real mismatch of what I enjoy in a book versus what I got, and I would definitely put a big content warning on this one. Then another YA kind of urban fantasy type thing, The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Hermann. This definitely had a kind of Stranger Things vibe to it, which I enjoyed. I did like this book. I gave it 3.5 stars, but as I was going through and moving books around, I did just realize like I just have zero desire to continue on in this series. So I don't necessarily feel the need to hold on to the first one because it wasn't that memorable. So liked this, would recommend it. It's just not, I just didn't feel like I was gonna keep going in the series, so I decided I could move this one along. Oh, then an old textbook-ish, a book that I read for one of my history of religion classes I took in grad school. This is American Evangelicals, A Contemporary History of a Mainstream Religious Movement by Barry Hankins. I think this is a perfectly respectable primer on American evangelicalism. I'm gonna say from when does it start? I guess it does start with the First Great Awakening, but I feel like it only goes up through early aughts, so it feels a little out of date to me, and I have other texts that I like better for this kind of history. So I just felt like I didn't especially need to hold on to this, and it is a really good sort of just like overview kind of book, so I felt like it would be nice to put it back out into circulation. Then we have The Nine Tailors by Dorothy L. Sayers. This has definitely been the success of my attempt at reading new Dorothy L. Sayers books in the Lord Peter Wimsey series. So I definitely enjoyed this one. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I don't especially feel the need to hold on to it. So I'm gonna take it back from whence it came. You can see that I got this copy from McKay's, and I'm just gonna take it back to McKay's. Then I have The Inner Voice of Love, A Journey Through Anguish to Freedom by Henri J.M. Nouwen. I mean, I remember liking this at the time, but I couldn't really tell you anything specific about this book. And so I was like, why am I holding on to something that I do remember liking, but don't have any real specific connection with beyond that? So I decided that this one could get passed along. R.I.P. Borders. This was from back when I worked at Borders. And then a pick that we read for our Blades and Bodice Rippers book club, The Widow of Rose House by Diana Biller. This was perfectly fine. I think I gave this 3.5 stars because it's just a little unusual for what you typically get in a historical romance, and I appreciated that. I think I liked this book better than any of the other people in the book club, but I didn't like it as much as I had heard other people enjoying it. So I guess I would just say, like, I think there's a variety of responses here. I do think that it's a little bit clunky in some of its pieces. I think the other members of the book club found the hero particularly to be oddly characterized. I just kind of rolled with it because I liked him. But anyway, I think if you're looking for something a little bit different, because this is set in sort of like a haunted house in 1800s New England, like in New York. I think it's in New York. And then like you also get sort of like the socialite New York aspect of this. So anyway, I just think that this has some like fun elements of it, but I don't think it was as good as I was hoping. So I'm gonna pass it along. Then The Crucified God by Jurgen Moltmon. This is a kind of classic of modern liberation theology, or sort of like German theology, like the continental theology maybe. I read pretty big chunks of this in grad school, and I just realized like I'm never gonna read this again. So why am I holding on to it? I guess just like for nostalgia reasons, because at the time this really was very impactful to me, but I'm not gonna hold on to it or reference it. So I feel like, again, it's a good book, probably would be better served being back out in circulation. Ugh. And then another Blades and Bodice Ripper book club pick that I did not enjoy, and that is Shadow and Claw by Gene Wolfe. I think if I hadn't been in a slump at the time, if I'd been allowed to DNF it, I wouldn't have such like lingeringly resentful feelings towards this book, because I think I just was not in the right mood, plus this was not quite my thing. So I don't think that this is a book that's terrible for everyone, but it was terrible for me. It's been a while since I've had such a bad time in a book that I actually finished, because I should have DNF'd this at about page 100, and I would have been able to say like, okay, not for me, but I can see, I wouldn't have left with such feelings of like resentment, which is what I now have. Okay, and then I have a few things that I'm calling conversion books. So I have a different edition, and that's why I'm unhauling these editions. So first of all, I got sent a PR kit that had this copy of Rebecca in it that was tied in with that Netflix adaptation recently. And I have a beautiful hardback edition of Rebecca, so I just don't need to hold on to this, and I would rather put a very good book back into circulation. So that's why that's going. Next, I did pick up a really lovely cloth-bound hardback edition of Stoner 50th Anniversary Edition, so I don't need to hold on to this paperback version anymore, so I am taking that to the used bookstore. And then finally, I am converting these 3 bind-ups. The first 3 bind-ups in Monstrous have been bound up again into one mega bind-up that is hardback, and so I have that now. So I'm gonna take these 3 graphic novel bind-ups to the used bookstore. So that will be a very exciting find for someone when they see that there, because Monstrous is fantastic. And then last, the single book that I have not read, I was supposed to read this as a supplemental bit on a history of the Church of England class I was taking in grad school, and I didn't get around to it. And I just realized this isn't actually really a history. This is like a polemic, and it's called The English Religious Tradition and the Genius of Anglicanism. So this is like from the early 90s, and it's literally just people like talking about how awesome Anglicanism is, which, like, no shade. I mean, I guess I would consider myself to be Episcopalian / Anglican. If I'm anything, cool. But I don't need to read a polemic about hyping up Anglicanism, so I'm gonna pass this one along as well. So there you go. That was my second attempt at filming this unhaul, a little spring cleaning action, and I feel very proud of myself that all of these, except for one, are books that I have actually read. So good job me for reading things that I own and not just buying them, letting them sit on my shelf so long that I no longer am interested in them, because I never do that. Never, ever. Anyway, let me know what you thought of any of the books that we talked about. Let me know if you have been doing any unhauling recently, what you've been getting off of your shelves. You can let me know that in the comments. And yeah, I think that will do it for me for now. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you are having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!